Amen right now. Amen anyhow. Bless your hearts today. Bless your hearts today. It's good to see all of you here. As we're making our way back to our seats, I'd like to say to all of our guests that we appreciate so very, very much you coming to spend time with us at the Lion Street family. And at the end of the day, we want you to consider making your family a part of our family. Amen. Amen. I want to just encourage all of you who are here to remain at the end of service is not the end of service. After dismissal prayer, we're going to reconvene in the fellowship hall, and we want especially our guests to come and break some bread with us. We'd like to spend that time with you and let you know how much we appreciate you being with us. So this is a special treat today, in as much as the fellowship meal is being sponsored by the Romeo Group. Amen. The Romeo Group. Romeo Group in the house today. And again, the Romeo Group is simply an acronym standing for Retired Old Men. Retired old men eating out. And so we're going to eat you in today. So we're excited about that. And before I get into our lesson for today, I just want to give a special shout out to all those who participated in whatever capacity, who participated in our Vacation Bible School. Amen. Amen. God bless you. We had a great time in that, whatever, all the children were edified, and, we made new friends, and it was just a glorious time. So again, to all of those who participated in that, thank you so very much. And we're just looking forward to great things happening here at the Lion Street congregation. Now, if you have your Bibles, turn with me to Proverbs, the 2nd chapter. Proverbs, the 2nd chapter. And as you know, on last Lord's Day, we embarked upon a new series of studies. And the series is entitled, In All You Get Wisdom. And this is a collection of lessons that come from the book of Proverbs. And on last Lord's Day, we talked a little bit about Proverbs. And we talked about the fact that the writer's intention was to educate and instill wisdom in the readers. That they may be able to not only understand that God supplies wisdom, that we will seek it out. That's right. And when we seek it out, we will be a better person for it. Now we said on last Lord's Day, we talked about the function or the purpose of wisdom, to educate, to instruct, to inform, and help us to mature in Christ Jesus. But not only that, we get to look at the finished product of wisdom. In other words, when one has acquired wisdom, what does that look like? Right. See, I may see someone walking down the street, and I can't just look at them and say they're wise or they're foolish. Right. But there has to be some evidence of acquired wisdom. Now, we had to differentiate between, proverbial wisdom and prophetic wisdom. And we said that prophetic wisdom was divine revelation from God. On the other hand, we said that proverbial wisdom was the wisdom of the time, wisdom of the era. And as people experience and made observation, they begin to see God's hand moving, and they begin to, write proverbs. Now, in the Middle Eastern culture, or Far East, to speak in proverbs, that was the way in which they communicated. Not so much today. However, there are proverbial statements today. But I wanted to help us to understand as we wait for the preacher to turn to the passage that I told everybody else to turn to. Amen. Again, as we look at Proverbs, I want us today to see. Let me do it this way. Let me tell you a story. Can I tell you a story? Yes. Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a man who discovered, on his property, he discovered, some diamonds. And he began to say, I must have, this lot must be in a field of diamonds. I got a diamond mine. But he found a few diamonds. He began to dig and dig. And then after he dug so far, like a well, he began to change from going down vertically to going horizontally. And he began to discover some diamonds. He ran into a little cluster, a whole bunch of diamonds. There's one, after he had gone about 50 feet, 50 yards, he now found a cluster of diamonds. He rode back and he retired from his old job, and he got, he was back in the covered wagon days, right? And so he brought all this stuff. And he invested everything in that diamond mine. He didn't find no more diamonds. Ended up bankrupting himself, being in ruin, brokenhearted and despondent. I sold all that I had for this mine, and now it has yielded nothing. I may have found a few diamonds that made me think that I had something going on, but now, this is just a worthless field. And he found some sucker, and he sold it to that sucker. And he went away thinking he had gotten over, right? Well, the person who bought this field, he said, well, before I begin to start digging for diamonds and all like that, let me hire a geologist to come in and do an inspection. And so this guy came in and did an inspection, and he began to tell him some things, about diamonds. He said, many times when you find a vein of diamonds, it won't be a horizontal. Sometimes it's like a vertical. So, you may find some diamonds here. And the man, what he did, he found a few diamonds going horizontally. But when he found those diamonds, had he gone vertically up or down, he would have run into a whole vein of diamonds. See, he had something, but didn't really know exactly what he had. Amen. Wisdom says, get an understanding of what you got. See, sometimes you have wisdom, and people have given wisdom to you, but you just don't know what you got. How many times have you heard faithful Proverbs? How many times have you received wisdom and didn't know what to do with it? This man became a very, very wealthy man. And every day he was thankful that he was played as a sucker. And now, when you look at the life of both men, both had the opportunity. Both were given the blessing. Both were given the resources. But one had the wherewithal to go and get an understanding of what he had. So today I want to show that we should seek wisdom and search for it diligently, as though you are searching for buried treasure. See, when a person is searching for buried treasure, he has this map. And on this map, it has an X. That's where the treasure is. So you begin to follow the map, and then when you find that spot, X marks the spot, you begin to dig diligently. So sometimes we begin to dig, and we may dig, 5, 10, and 15 feet. 16 feet and 17 feet and 19 feet, and we get despondent, and after we've dug 19 feet, we give up. And we miss out on the treasure that had been buried 20 feet deep. Amen. And so, I want to take as a theme for today, searching for buried treasure. Right. Searching for buried treasure. Because sometimes wisdom is just not laying on the surface. That's true. Sometimes you have to begin to explore. You have to begin. See, the Bible says study to show thyself approved of God, right? See, sometimes even the Bible, the wisdom of the Word of God, it is given to us, but we have to put in some sweat equity if we want to unlock or receive the treasure of the Word of God. And today I want us to realize that the Lord is a very, very present help in time of trouble, right? That's what the Bible says in Proverbs 46. Psalm 46. But it is equally true. It is equally true that the Lord is a very greatly needed help. Not only in time of trouble, but in times of prosperity. Now, the reason why I say that is because, again, I said the proverbial wisdom was given to help young men in the immediate day they were couched in. For example, do you not know that the book of Proverbs has a certain style and a certain purpose and benefit of these sayings? So when you look at the beauty of this poetic literature, we'll find that it's used as what's called parallelisms. Parallelisms. Now, the parallel is two lines that go in the same way, right?
Correct.
Line and Judson and Governor, those are parallel streets, right? Well, parallelisms are good sayings, and therefore, if you notice in the book of Proverbs, many times one verse will say one thing, and then the next verse would parallel that verse. Let me give you an example. For example, notice the Bible says, the fear of the Lord prolongeth days, but the years of the wicked shall be shortened. That's a parallelism. Now, there are two kinds of parallelisms. Let me get this out of the way first. There are two kinds of parallelisms that we look at in the Bible. One is a synonymous parallelism. In other words, it says one thing, and then it says the same thing in a different way. Right? But there's also the antithetic parallelisms. In other words, it may say a thing, like I just read, right? It says, the fear of the Lord prolonged his days. But then it gives the opposite. But the years of the wicked shall be shortened. Okay? So both of them are parallelisms, but one is a antithetic or opposite. We have antonyms, the opposite. And the other one is, say the same thing. So the Bible uses this kind of style simply because, Jesus said it like this. The Bible said Jesus spoke in parables. Right? See, in those days, people would speak in Proverbs, and they would speak in allegories, and they would speak in parables, and I call them riddles. A lot of times they, remember Samson? When he was, he began to answer these riddles, and then he would tell riddles, and they couldn't understand the meaning of it. That was their culture. See, my dad, he was a wise man. He would tell me some proverbs. He would tell me, I don't want you to run with the crowd. Because when you run with the crowd, you'll end up in trouble. Running with the crowd, there was a proverb. I didn't know.
Right.
I thought you trying to rain on my parade. But there was wisdom there. I found out wisdom back when I ran with the crowd and got in trouble. I realized the wisdom that he was giving me to help me to avoid the pitfalls of life.
Right.
Jesus would come back and say, enter ye in the straight gate. Because wide is the way and broad, wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction. And many will enter in thereat. So what parables or what proverbs have you given or have you received? Or have you ignored? And so, as we talk about the value of wisdom, keep in mind the diamond mine. How valuable it was to one person and how worthless it was to another person. And ask yourself this question. What things have come into my life that were of value, and because I did not recognize or appreciate the value of the thing, I ended up squandering things. I think we can all look back on our lives and see how we have missed this proverb.
That's true.
So today, I want to give you three things quickly. As we talk about searching for buried treasure, I want to first of all show that God is the one who gives wisdom, right? But there are prerequisites for gaining wisdom. Again, like I said a moment ago, wisdom it doesn't just fall out of the sky. Although it does fall out of the sky. But can you see it? Do you catch it, or does it land on your head? Let's look at the prerequisites, or what is required to gain wisdom. And that is outlined in verses 1 through 5 of chapter 2. It says, my son, he said, if thou wilt receive my word. You see that? If thou wilt, that's a strange, the largest word in the English language is what? If. If I could, would, or should. If I had only. If my, circumstances would have been different. I would have came out better. If my mom and dad would have been rich and I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, then everything would be all right. If. Endless possibilities. Sometimes we hold ourselves back by living in the if-then arena. Right. But the divine knowledge is, and don't think I'm just talking and giving some soliloquy or some fancy words, but divine knowledge is within the reach of human understanding. How often have we said it? I just can't understand the Bible. You can't understand the Bible, and then we don't try. And consequently, we don't understand the Bible. And when I told you couldn't understand, but you didn't try to understand. God has made his word available to us. Therefore, he has made his revelation available to us. Culminating in Jesus Christ himself. The Bible says that he said, no man has seen God at any time. But the only begotten of the Father, the only begotten Son, he has made him known. He has declared him. So Jesus is the full explanation of God. If you want to see God, just look at Jesus. If you want to see how Jesus would respond at the loss of a loved one, the Bible says Jesus wept. If you want to understand how God feels about those who are despondent, the Bible says Jesus, he fed the hungry. He gave sight to the blind. He showed mercy. He showed compassion. And watch this. Say amen only if you can. If a person wants to know how Jesus is, they need to do what? Look at the church. Amen. Say amen if you can, but if you can't, I understand. Amen. If people want to see love and they want to see the compassion of Jesus, they need look no further than the church. And so therefore it is incumbent on the church to be the representation and the expression of character in Jesus Christ. Amen. And so therefore we understand we need to gain wisdom. We need to get understanding. And God has made it available to us. So we can't walk around with this cop-out attitude. I just don't get it. I just can't understand. See, if you believe you can, or if you believe you can't, you're absolutely right. That's right. Notice, this text helps us to see certain things. First of all, it gives us the attainability of wisdom. Again, he says, my son, if thou wilt receive my word. In other words, the word is something that we can receive. It is attainable. God gives us the capacity to receive and to make good use of wisdom. In Hebrews chapter 1, the Bible says, God who in old times, like sundry times, right? Back in the old time and in diverse manners, see the prophets, they spoke and they wrote. So in different ways, God communicated with the fathers through the prophets. But the Bible says, but in these last days, he's now communicated to us through the final revelation, through Jesus Christ. And so here we are, we understand that God has provided. See, if he didn't provide, we could say that it's unattainable. But since God has revealed his revelation to mankind, it is attainable. He has provided everything that we need. But also, not only is it attainable, this wisdom, but also the achievable conditions for receiving godly wisdom. When you look at that. And what I want to do, for those of you who are equipped with a pencil and paper, I want you to write these down. Number one, if you want to receive godly wisdom, you got to pay attention. Amen. Yeah. Pay attention. In other words, you have to see the Proverbs in wisdom is likened to a woman. Wisdom is like a woman crying out. And she's crying out. And so the father is saying to the son, wisdom is speaking out. Pay attention. Pay attention and listen to the instructions of the teacher. But not only that. See, when the teacher is teaching, I see some of your faces right now. When you were in school, the teacher was teaching, and you was passing notes. I like you, do you like me? Yes or no? All that stuff, remember that? Yes or no, check, all that kind of stuff. Teacher want to say, call on you, you only know this y'all about. Pay attention to the teacher. Attention is important. But not only is attention important, but retention is valuable as well. How do you retain what you have attained? Yes. Then you get it. We have to be able to retain stuff. See, the Bible gives us some key nuggets for retention. For the Bible says in Psalm 19 and 11 says, thy word I have hid in my heart. I have hid in my heart that I might not what? Sin against thee. So we must receive the word. And not only do we receive it, we must hide it in our heart. See, wisdom becomes like a seed. A seed that fell on the wayside. It fell on the ground, but the ground did not receive it. Right. See, it has to be hid in the soil. Hello? Jesus said, if a seed, dies and falls to the earth, then it will manifest itself in a new form. See, this plant right here wasn't always a plant. Once upon a time, someone planted a seed. And the seed had to fall into the ground and be hid in the ground. And then there's a certain process that goes on while it's buried. Well, it's buried in the ground. And it's regenerated. And it comes back to life in another form. See, this is what 1 Corinthians 7:15 is talking about, right? How this mortal has to put on immortality, this corruptible must put on incorruption. Yeah, the seed has to fall down and then be buried, and it comes back in a new life. And so we must retain it. We must hide it in our hearts. And then once we retain it, number 3, we have to engage in a reflection. Reflect upon it. You read a passage, and then we have to meditate on it. To ruminate on it. We call it chewing the cud. Right? Chewing the little cow would eat all grain all day long. And then he go back to the pasture, and during the night, something is still going on with that cow. The Bible says he would begin to regurgitate that food and chew it again. See, when you are meditating on the Word of God, you have read it, and you have it in you, and you start thinking about it, you are beginning to reflect on it. You are now ruminating on it. You are chewing it again. See, you got to have, how many of you got a favorite passage? Who wants to stand up and quote your favorite passage? That's all right. But you see that at one passage, you can bring it up again and again and again. And when you are in a situation, in times of trouble, in the valley of your decision, you know what? That passage can come back to your remembrance. And you can recall that passage. And you can begin to extract gems of applicable wisdom right then and there. So you have to be able to not only have attention and retention, but reflection. But then you move to what we call supplication. See, verse 3 says, yea, if thou criest after knowledge or discernment, and lift up thy voice for understanding. You got to take this thing to the Lord. You see, God is the one who gives it. And I can read a certain book and begin to gain some insights from that book. But if I can talk to the author of the book, he can give me some insights that I may not get off the pages of inspiration. See, God is the writer of the book. And so, if you can't understand something in the book, why don't you just ask the author? Pray to God. Cry out for wisdom. Seek understanding. Pray to God that he'll give you illumination and insight into his word. Got this book sitting over here. But you're supposed to have a close relationship with the author. And how can you have a close relationship with the author and not understand the book? But the fifth thing, you have to be able to show some diligence and perseverance. See, you can pray all day long for wisdom and understanding of the Word of God, but if you never study it. See, there's a difference between a prayer of desperation and a prayer of faith.
That's true.
You see, a prayer of faith is a prayer that says, yes, I believe that God is going to provide. Therefore, I want a brand new car. When that song, oh Lord, won't you give me a Mercedes-Benz? And you pray that prayer. Some of y'all pray that prayer right now. But you haven't cleaned out your garage. Junk all over the place. So where are you going to park your car? Ooh, I didn't think about that. See, if you want a blessing, you have to pray to God for the blessing. But then begin to make preparation to receive it. Amen. Perhaps you're not receiving your blessing because your blessing is over here and you are over here. Why don't you position yourself where the blessings are being deposited? Yeah, pray to God, yeah, but then you do your due diligence. The Bible says in 2 Timothy chapter 2 and 15, it says, study to show thyself approved. Another verse says, be diligent to show yourself approved unto God. As a workman who needs not to be ashamed. Why? Because he's rightly dividing the word of truth. See, that way, as a missionary phrase, to rightly divide, it means to do what? To cut it straight. To cut it straight. You can't build on a weak foundation. You got to have a plumb line. You got to be able to cut it straight. See, that's why false doctrine is so prevalent today, because folk ain't cutting it straight. And the more they build on that faulty foundation, the further and further they get away from the revelation of God. You got to cut it straight. You got to put proper things in their proper place. And the Bible says it all about. How do you put proper things in their proper place? How do you context a thing? How do you able to discern the historical context? That's what I was talking about with this whole idea of Proverbs. Is the idea of giving counsel. But do you not know that the counsel of the book of Proverbs would have meant nothing to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? See, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they were a nomadic people. Nomads. In other words, they were, they lived in tents. And they traveled. That's what we got the idea about the tabernacle, right? They lived in tents and they traveled all over the place. But you see, after the stabilization of the Hebrew nation, and they begin to prosper, and they begin to attain wealth, and now because of heroes like David and heroes like Solomon, they now became a very prosperous and wealthy nation. Is that right? And because they became very prosperous and a wealthy nation, they began to enjoy the lap of luxury. They began to have this sudden wealth and prosperity, which brought on, watch this, it brought on the refinement of temptation. You see, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, there were some temptations, right? But now when you get more sophisticated, and you get more wealth, and you get more status, and you get all of that, we begin to refine temptation. And we get in our sophistication, we begin to put different labels on stuff. And we don't call sin what it really is. We live in a very euphemistic world. And so instead of saying that man and that woman, they committed adultery, we euphemistically say, oh, they're having an affair. Ooh, that sounds good, don't it? An affair. Make you want to go have one, don't it? Don't answer that. It is what it is. It's sin. It's adultery. But in a euphemistic world, we have smoothed everything over. And now right is no longer right. Wrong is right. We call that situation ethics. We have our ethical compass is shaped by the situation we find ourselves in. Yeah, so the Proverbs to talk to that new group of folk, that new age of a believer who had allowed the wealth and prosperity to have more sophisticated sin. So these sayings were not to be taken lightly. And when you are diligent in searching for this buried treasure, when you are studying to show yourself approved unto God, there's a promise. And we see the assurance of success. God will give you success. Notice what the text says. And we look at Proverbs once again. He says, if thou seek after her as silver, and search for her as a treasure to be hid. In other words, we have to recognize the value of what God has given us. Do we recognize or do we take for granted the value of the Word of God? When you take it for granted, you find yourself with a haphazard approach to the Word of God. But when you hide it in your heart, when you search for it diligently like silver and gold, then, notice verse 5, then shall thou understand the fear of the Lord and find knowledge of God. See, there is assurance of a successful life. You see, if the habits that we just enumerated here, if you use those as habits for seeking the wisdom and then to practice it, the Bible says, then shall you understand. The Bible says over in Matthew 7:7, Jesus says, seeking you what? You shall find. Hello? Ask and you shall receive. Knock and the door shall be opened unto you. But you got to do some seeking. You've got to do some asking. You got to do some due diligence. And when that happens, when you practice the good, godly habits of life, God assures you that the abundant life is there for you. Jesus said, I come that you may have life. He practiced it by saying that the thief came to rob, kill, and destroy. Don't you know that Satan wants to rip you off? Come on now. He wants to take you out. That's right. He wants to make you forfeit your blessings in Christ Jesus. And then while you find yourself estranged from God, he wants to take you out and he wants to kill you. Yeah. Satan is the enemy. He is the deceiver. And he wants to take you out. He wants to rip you off. But Jesus said, I have come. I come that you may have life and may have it more abundantly. Well, Brother Meriwether, I still can't pay my bills. I'm a Christian. Well, wait a minute. Let's not conflate abundance with wealth, health, wealth, and prosperity. Let me rephrase that, because I think, when we live a life that is in harmony with God, there are blessings. When I begin to adhere to godly principles, it's going to eventuate in some productivity in my life. But don't get it twisted. A person may have the trappings of material prosperity, and we're looking at that person, oh, we live blessed by God. We can debate that. But the bottom line is the fear of the Lord is what produces wisdom, the knowledge of God. On last time we spoke about this word epinosis, right? See, epignosis is knowledge, not from a book, but it is, although the book, it does have a book, but it has to be the proper application of that knowledge that has now resulted in, I know God. I know him for myself. Because not only did I read his word about God and begin to academically understand some precepts about God, but guess what? I began to walk by faith. I put God to the test. He said, you want to live this kind of way? And guess what I did? I began to live that kind of way. And as a result, he has been with me. He has been my friend, my deliverer. Understanding has been given to me. And when you understand, again, I wanted to give a shout out to those who worked in the VBS, right? Well, every night when you came in the front door, you were greeted by Sister Louise Cartwright, Sister Betty Griffin, and then Sister Sue Bryant. And they were manning at the table over there, right? And so one day I came back, I was kind of messing with them, we talked and that thing. And Sister Cartwright was on her phone. And she was coloring. She has this app where you have this little number, you push this number in, and it highlights and you make this picture, right? How many of you got that yet? Okay, you know what I'm talking about, right? See, here's the deal. When you look at the picture, you can see the whole picture, right? But you see some of those little dots you got to fill in are kind of hard to find. And you have to kind of enlarge the screen. And when you enlarge the screen, you can just get a certain section of the picture. Not the whole picture, but just a section of the picture. And you color all that in, and then you move on to another section and another section, right? Not really appreciating the full picture until at the end. See, when you walk with the Lord, and God gives you wisdom, he gives you a panoramic view. See, this one, in all that get an understanding. Because I know you can get a whole bunch of knowledge, facts and data and all that kind of stuff, but you still don't have an understanding of how the whole thing works. So therefore, instead of doing this section stuff, when you are in harmony with God and you get understanding, it gathers up and makes the good result of all the stuff. Now you can see the whole picture. Not just a section of the picture, and then another section of the picture. You can appreciate the whole beauty of the picture, and now you see what the picture is all about. See, if I am walking down the street and some robbers are waiting to rob me, I don't have a clue because I don't see the whole picture. Sure. Aren't you glad you serve a God who sees the whole picture? And so therefore, God who sees everything, who knows everything, he's trying to give you a hint, clue. Not to follow this crowd, not to walk down this cat. I'm walking on the wild side. Yeah, right. He already knows the beginning from the end. And he's trying to give us, through the Proverbs, he's trying to give us some ammunition that we can sidestep a whole lot of calamity, a whole lot of heartache, a whole lot of headache too, by just applying the principles of the Proverbs. Now, so we understand the prerequisite for gaining wisdom, but now understand this, and don't get this messed up, and that is that God is the one. God gives provisions for wisdom, and they are graciously bestowed on all of us. The question is, are they graciously received by any of us? God is the giver, and man is the receiver. God has, notice what it says in verse number 6. In 6 through 8, I'm going to read that whole section there. It says, watch this. For the Lord giveth wisdom. The Lord giveth wisdom. Out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. He layeth up sound wisdom for the righteous. He is a buckler to them that walk uprightly. He keepeth the path of judgment and preserveth the way of his saints. See, God has the wisdom to bestow upon us. Again, in Hebrews 1, how did he do it? How did he communicate to the prophet, to the Father, through the prophets, through his revelation? But also, you can even look at nature itself and see the wisdom of God. Amen. Psalm 19 talks about that. So therefore, through prophetic revelation, through observation and experience, God is communicating with us. He is the bestower of all wisdom. But notice what the Bible says. He reserves the wisdom for a certain group. Oops. What do you mean by that? Well, I'm not going to try to deal with that. I'm going to let the Word of God deal with it. Notice what he said. He said in verse number 6, so the Lord giveth wisdom, out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. Everybody can receive that. Right? But then that's what he said. He lays up sound wisdom for who? For the righteous. For the righteous. He is a buckler for who? Them that walk uprightly. You see, righteous. In other words, that is sound teaching. The righteous receive sound teaching. And the word sound here is like, I'm standing on this stage, right? And it's pretty sound. I can stand on it. I can put my full weight on it. I can have confidence walking on it because it is structurally sound. Well, when you put your faith in God, when you put your trust in God, when you begin to understand and embrace and apply his teaching, it brings soundness and stability to your character. See, sometimes you can get a whole bunch of information, a lot of facts and data and ingenuity and know-how, but if you are not sound in character, you'll use all of that ingenuity and information to create mischief, to do wrong. But you see, when a person is in love with God and following his word, saying, speak, Lord, your servant heareth, command, and I will obey. See, when you study, what are you studying for? To know more about God? Or to be more like God? To walk with God? To have fellowship with God? But when you do that, he said, I will give you stability of character. And when you have a stable character, opportunities and circumstances may come in your life where some people will fall into sin or fall back into the world, or there's a person at the store, and the person who gave them the cashier gave them back too much change, and they got back in the car. They was giving high fives because they got more money. I saw this commercial about this woman. She was checking out, and she got a whole bunch of good deals. And she saw the bill and said, "Wait, this can't be right." And she was walking fast. She said, "Stop the car! So we heard him get away from me." That's not sound. That's not sound character. God wants us to have sound character. But not only that, watch this. It also says, "Those that walk uprightly." You see that? He will be the buckler. The buckler. In other words, when you strive to walk upright, God said, I will provide protection for you. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, because I'm walking in the valley of the shadow of death, but guess who I'm walking with? I'm walking with God. So he is my protection. He is my buckler. And notice what the Bible says. He will give me himself as a shield. The idea is like a crocodile, right? A crocodile has a very hard exterior. And you can hit that thing like a turtle. You can hit it and it won't hurt it. Why? Because he has that arm become a shield. But you see, God said, I will be your buckler. I will be your shield. I will be your defense and your protection. So when you're walking with the Lord, He got you. He's your shield. He's your protection. Now let me make this statement because that may confuse us. Well, there's a lot of smart people who do wrong. Do you remember there was a couple by the name of Adam and his wife Eve, right? They were in the garden, but they were not alone. The Bible says now the serpent, he was more subtle than all the other beasts of the field. Right? When you talk about he was more subtle, in other words, it was saying that he possessed cunning. That's different from wisdom. See, godly wisdom is one thing. But this was cunning, craftiness. He was skilled in deceit. There's a lot of folk who are skilled in deceit. There's a lot of people who are very crafty and cunning. And Christians, you can be, sometimes we're the most gullible folk.
That's true.
We can be so gullible. And someone who's crafty and cunning and deceitful can rip you off and take advantage of your goodwill. Folk come in and run this game like they need and all that kind of, and I'm not saying those people know that, but I'm just simply saying there's a lot of folk who crafty, who are cunning, subtle, skilled in deceit, which is not to be conflated or compared to the wisdom that comes from God. The true wisdom, in other words, Adam and Eve, what happened? They followed the tempter's guidance, and therefore they were led astray. Satan leads you astray unless you have the discernment that comes from the wisdom that God supplies. You see, unsoundness opens one up to the wiles of the devil. That's why the Bible says that we're not wrestling with flesh and blood. That's why the Bible says we have to be strong in the Lord and the power of his might. So we don't get ripped off by the craftiness or the wiles of the devil. The fruit of wisdom is understanding of a thing. And when you, just like on that little app that Sister Cartwright had, when you're able to back up and see the whole picture, then you can appreciate the beauty of the thing. And now you know what piece goes where. And when you see, sometimes I could just really, really, really appreciate the beautiful forest if it weren't for all those doggone trees in the way. But when you were able to go up higher, there's a picture in my house of me when I lived in, do we live in Poway? Or Chula Vista, one of them. We live in San Diego, right? And I went out with this guy, and I got on his motorcycle. We ride, and then we went hiking up this big old hill. And I got up there at the summit, and I was looking down, and I looked at those big hawks and stuff like that, with the waves. I was looking down on them. We were way up there. And I could look out of the whole valley, the whole expanse, and appreciate the beauty of it all. And when we came back down, we driving in traffic. All you could see was just the traffic. You couldn't appreciate everything. That's how wisdom is. It allows you to back up and see the whole picture and then get an understanding. And when you get an understanding, you can now properly apply what you have received in whatever situation you find yourself in. Because understanding allows you to have discernment. Not just facts and information. To know God. To know yourself. And now you're able to effectively know others and recognize the enemy with all of his tactics. I want to give you this. Remember Abraham? Now Abraham had a nephew by the name of Les, right? No, it was Lot. It was Lot. Well, when in Genesis the 14th chapter, when Abraham learned that Lot had been taken captive, he determined to rescue his kin, right? And he wanted to rescue his kin from the enemy. Now, watch this. The skill with which he planned and carried out the attack showed his wisdom, right? Right? But watch this. In the very next chapter, Genesis chapter 15, and verse 1 and following, God came to him and said, "Fear not, Abraham, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward." Now the question is, how had God just proved himself to be his shield? It wasn't, he didn't send legions of angels to come and rescue him. He did not send down fire from heaven to devour them. He did not part the Red Sea and all that kind of stuff. He didn't do any of that. You know what he did? He provided him with the wisdom by which he was able to defend himself. See, sometimes we think we got out of this mess on our own. See, the wisdom in how he trained his men and how they developed a strategy to be victorious, that was wisdom from God. So God said, I am your buckler. I don't have to send down legions of angels every time I want to rescue you. I give you ingenuity and I give you the wherewithal. How then is God his buckler? How is he your buckler? Well, the Bible says he preserves the way of his saints by giving them wisdom and grace and understanding in order to keep his ways and find the good path to walk over. Yeah, God provides wisdom to keep you out of trouble. He directs our steps. He illuminates our path. And finally, as we close, let me talk about this path for just a moment. In verse 9 and 10, as we finish in the exegetical part of this lesson, it said, after I have sought wisdom, cried out for wisdom, I inclined my ears to wisdom, sought to retain it, to reflect on it, to meditate on it, and then to pray out to God for it. The Bible says God is the one who supplies all that I need as it relates to wisdom. It gives me the wherewithal to understand. It gives me the capacity to walk upright. He said, I'll be your shield, and I will keep your path, that you may have judgment, and I will preserve your way. Then shall you understand. You're able to make sound judgment, be fair and equitable, and be on a good path. Now watch this. It says, when wisdom enters into thy heart, and knowledge is pleasant unto thy soul, the result is going to be discretion. Your ability to make good judgment. See, over in Psalms chapter 1, verse 3, the Bible says, and he should be like a tree, planted by rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth, shall prosper. He said, then thou shalt understand, and you shall recognize the good path. So if you want to walk on the highway of holiness, you got to recognize what it is, or what it looks like. Notice, he who is taught of God understands the whole law. You understand justice. You understand mercy and righteousness and truth. But not only do you understand it, you're able to walk in justice. You're able to be merciful to others. You're able to walk upright and do what's right in the sight of the Lord. And you understand truth. You're able to communicate truth. And you live according to truth. Amen. See, God writes on our hearts. See, I can read a book. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to practice what I read in the book. They used to say, if you know better, you do better, right? Nah. How many times do we know the good thing to do and don't do it? All you have to do is get a pack of cigarettes. And you read on the cigarettes. And the Surgeon General says, you fool. What's up with this? Don't you know this thing's going to cause cancer? Don't you know this is going to be causing this, that, or the other? All these different ailments, all as a result of you smoking. The next time you take a drag, then understand you're committing suicide slowly. You may not be blowing your brains out today, but every time you take a hit off that hit, well, that's the wrong one, a drag. They said drag off that cigarette. Woo! There's wisdom up here. Discern what to say, what not to say. Amen. Yeah, we need some wisdom. The Surgeon General had already said this is harmful. Now you know better, but you don't necessarily do better. Amen. Well, see, when God writes on your heart, you now find profit from that information. So knowing better does not necessarily translate to doing better. It's one thing for wisdom to find you. It's another thing for you to seek after it. Remember the diamond mine? The diamond just about just found him. But he didn't know how to seek after the diamonds. See, wisdom was sometimes, like my dad was talking about, the old ladies would say this. Boy, a hard head, it was a proverb, right? A hard head. Amen. That's a proverb. But do you get it? See, sometimes we still don't get it. How many times do you need to see knocks on somebody's head to realize that a brick wall will give you an exaggerated headache? How many times do you have to put your hand on the stove with the eyes and stuff all red? It looks pretty, so you put your hand on it. Let me close. Let me close. Yeah. And that's why it said, and understand this, it said, when wisdom enters into the heart, and knowledge is pleasant unto thy soul. Discretion shall preserve thee. Understanding shall keep thee. See, the wisdom of God ushers in the abundant life. That it not only leads us and guides us and protects us, but it also saves us from sin. It restores us to a right relationship with God through our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. When wisdom enters the heart and knowledge is pleasant to the soul, discretion shall preserve thee. Amen. Understand that. Understanding shall keep thee. If you want to be fruitful and productive in life, understand that God has applied everything that you need for life and godliness. He has given you, not only the blueprint, He's giving you the book, but He also said, if you don't understand the book, ask me. Right. James would say, if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask God. Right. He gives liberally, He upbraideth not. He will supply what you need. So if you're here today, and you want to walk with God, you want to walk on the highway of holiness, all you need to do is avail yourself. Open yourself up to receive the wisdom that comes from God. Amen. I know we've had some experiences in our lives. Some things that have happened in our lives. And sometimes those experiences make us think that we know it all. And you begin to embrace stuff that the Bible does not authorize. You begin to live a life that is contrary to the Word of God. That's a life of folly.
That's true.
That's right.
God is, even today, God is speaking to you through this message to lay aside all of that counterfeit wisdom that has been supplied by the cunning and trickery of the devil, and make yourself available to wisdom from God. Jesus said, I've come to give you life, the abundant life. And see, the abundant life is rooted in a relationship with Jesus.
Amen.
You see that? See, you need a relationship with Jesus. And when you have a relationship with the Lord, that will enhance your relationships with one another. How does that work out?
Right.
Well, don't ask me. Ask the Word of God. The Word of God says, first of all, we need to admit that we have not lived a life that has been in harmony with God. Let's go ahead and admit it. We already know. God already knows. Because the Bible says all have sinned. What is the first movie working out of VBS? Bo, the Anaconda, what do you say? All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. We've all sinned. We all stand in need of God's grace. So there's nobody out in here who can begin to boast because they're so righteous, because it all comes from God anyway. It is God who gives. He supplies. But we have to, first of all, admit that we need him. And when you come clean, then you can get clean. But until you come clean, you can't get clean. So the Bible says we have to admit that we've sinned. But we also see that God is the solution to the human predicament. He's the solution. And he solved the problem when he died on the cross. He said, I will pay the penalty. For the wages of sin is death, and I'll pay it. But he died on the cross, so we didn't have to. And in order for you to embrace the benefits of his death, you just need to obey the gospel. Say, yes, I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God. I want to repent of my sins. I confess him as Lord. He is God's Son. And I want to be buried in the watery grave of baptism for the remission of my sins. Therefore, you shall receive the gifts of the Holy Spirit. That's the message. Now, it takes wisdom and understanding and discernment to receive and comply to that. You know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. As a matter of fact, it's so simple that most rocket scientists won't get it. Because it was something, deeper than the simplicity of the gospel. But if you want to obey the gospel, you can. By saying, yes, I believe Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Yes, I do believe that. I want to change my life. I want to give it to him because I know that he is Lord. I want to submit to him as Lord of my life. And yes, I want my sins forgiven. I want to call on the name of the Lord. And so Ananias would say to Saul, who was later the Apostle Paul, he would say, why tarriest thou? Arise and be baptized and wash away your sins, calling on the name of the Lord. That's right. Now, if you remember the body of Christ, and you have not applied wisdom properly, first, let's just pray about it. Can we just pray about some stuff? And we sing a song, Have Another Talk with Jesus. It's really all about talking to Jesus. Letting the Lord know that you want to be, I want to open myself up to you. And we have some men who are on their way up here right now. And as they're making their way, they want to pray with you. They want to pray for you. They want to come alongside. Sometimes you need somebody just to come alongside of you sometimes. I can't make it on my own. I need some help. There may be somebody sitting next to you who want to come down, but there's too many folk in the way. You in the way. You try to get, can I get back? Somebody might be too scared to come down by themselves. Somebody next to you will walk down here with you. It's all about coming to the Lord. I believe that Jesus answered my question. And the wisdom that God supplies is nudging me and prompting me to do the first thing. The Bible says in verse number 7 of chapter 1, what? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Mm-hmm. That's what we saw. If you understand who he is, and you reverence him, you respect him, you have a reverential fear and awe, you need to give your life to God. You need to give your life to God now. No need to play around. If you're playing around, if you're going to wait around, understand the one who is subtle. Understand the one who is crafty. Understand the one who is skillful in deception. And they said, okay, come back next week. Person preaching next week. Now you need to stop playing games and come to God. Now if you need more study and all that kind of stuff, the whole church, we have men who are gifted in teaching, who will walk with you through the Word of God and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes we know we got to get our life together. If you fit into that category, make your response. Make it right now. As together we stand and sing a song of encouragement. We invite your response.